Good morning and a warm welcome and thank you to you all for joining the South African Chamber of Commerce in our celebration of International Women's Day. My name is June Whiteman and I'm the Regional Chapter Leader of the SA Chamber of Commerce on the Isle of Man. A special thank you to our guests, Joanne Macris, Palesa Madumo, Cheryl Buss, Ramadmeche Lucy Mashigo, and Veronica King. And I thank you all for allocating time in a busy day to share your thoughts and experiences with us. I'd also like to thank our member Penny Edwards of Celador Wines for putting together her innovative packages to celebrate International Women's Day. You can find Penny's details on the Chamber website. So thank you, Penny. Without further ado, I'd like to introduce you to Veronica King. I've known Veronica for many years, and on our first introduction, I was struck by the light that shines from within this remarkable woman. I remember sitting around our dining room table many years ago and Veronica telling us about the work she was doing with the local community in the Valley of 1,000 Hills in KwaZulu-Natal. That work, undertaken so early in her career, was to shape and influence her path to inclusion and diversity. Veronica challenges social justice and does work around the world, across Africa and around the world. And I'd now like to hand over to Veronica, who's going to introduce you to each of our speakers. Thank you, Veronica.
Thank you, June. Lovely memories there of KwaZulu-Natal, where I grew up. Good afternoon. Happy International Women's Day. I'm Veronica King. I'm speaking to you from Johannesburg in South Africa. It's a beautiful day here today. And it's wonderful that I've been asked to speak and moderate 4 amazing women on our panel. International Women's Day for me is definitely not just another one of those holidays. I think it's a really topic that's close to my heart, part of my work and my passion in social justice and equity and inclusion is how do we challenge gender inequality. So being asked to moderate a panel of 4 dynamic women and having all these women, and welcome to the men on the call today, is really an honor. Thank you very much again, June, for asking me to be here today. And there's also something about the theme. I kind of have been listening and following the UN Women on LinkedIn, and I love the theme and how they're focusing on women in leadership and highlighting the role of women in the front line of this pandemic, our COVID-19 pandemic. So I think for us to really be holding the torch and holding the high dream of how when women in leadership are really recognized, that will really enable progress for everybody in all aspects. So more women in leadership in all aspects of business. I'm not going to go into the stats of how many women leaders there are and the percentage of women CEOs, because we all know that there's a lot of work to be done for us to have true equality in all these different aspects. So holding the intention of equal future, free of stigma, stereotypes and violence is a big part of why I felt so touched by being asked to moderate today. So without further ado, the plan and the format for today will be that each of our amazing panelists would spend a few minutes telling us about their topics, which I will mention momentarily. The format thereafter would be that we would go into breakout rooms in order, with each of the panelists being in one of the rooms, to enable lovely questions and networking opportunity, and we will come back into plenary. So that would be our format. So the first speaker I have the honor of introducing today is Joanne Macris. And forgive me if any of the pronunciations are not correct. I'm very fastidious about correct names. As my CV says, I do a lot of work around diversity and inclusion. The importance of our names is critical, especially when Black names are not pronounced correctly. I often get slightly awkward about that, so I'm going to work hard on that. So welcome, Joanne. It's lovely to have you. Joanne is a managing partner at Alexander Hughes, which is an executive search company. She has a master's degree in human resources and is an excellent, globally renowned, world-seasoned talent acquisition professional with extensive knowledge in engineering, financial, and information system sectors. Welcome, Joanne, and we look forward to hearing what you have to share around smashing stereotypes. I love that topic. Thank you. Over to you.
Thank you very much, Veronica, for the wonderful, warm welcome. And to all the lovely ladies out there, happy Women's Day. First of all, I'd like to mention that Alexander Hughes is a global executive search firm with offices in 46 countries. And the topic smashing stereotypes is quite a personal topic in terms of my personal experiences and to many women out there in the business world. I'd like to share a story with you. Many years ago, I was managing a bulk recruitment and training project in the Middle East. I was surrounded by men who did not acknowledge or want to work with me. I felt so frustrated that I finally decided to take control of the situation. I called an urgent meeting of the team and asked one question. Whoever in this room has an issue with working with a woman or wants to cross the professional line, kindly remove yourself immediately. Do you know I lost over 5 members on my team that day? I turned around to the remaining team and said, let's get the job done. Once I dealt with the issues at hand, it was smooth sailing all the way. So, ladies, it's up to you. Choose to challenge. I have no doubt that as women in the professional world, we have all experienced some sort of discrimination in the workplace. How we've managed this defines who we are and what we become, as it paves the way for development in our careers as well as others. You can be a professional mom and achieve a successful balance. Developing your leadership skills is critically important as a professional woman to reach your goals. Part of choosing to challenge is to identify a mentor for yourself and further mirror this personal growth by mentoring someone in your team to initiate and facilitate succession planning. The commitment to mentorship can be exhausting, but highly rewarding at the same time. Empower yourself and take ownership of your future. It's not our difference that divides us. It's our inability to recognize, accept, and celebrate those differences, by Andre Lorde. This quote resonates with me in the workplace, where women for generations have been competing with men and not embracing their womanhood because they feel judged as being the weaker sex. To be a woman in business and thrive, you must be heartfelt to accept who you are and how you can positively inspire all around you. A truly successful woman is one who's confident in her femininity and eager to learn and grow. She has achieved her equal opportunity position based on her professional ability and embraced a sustainable balance between career and home. Leadership in every organization will always have a vision, whilst he or she inspires and leads with fairness, a good judgment, and the embracement of diversity. Unfortunately, this is not always the case for women, who are often left having to overprove their capabilities before being considered or taken seriously. In some instances, visionary leadership does not recognize anyone beyond the male parameters. A survey by McKinsey last year in the USA shared these insights. Progress towards gender parity remains slow between January 2015 to 2020. Women in the C-suite increased from 17 to 21%. Women remaining dramatically underrepresented, including women of color. However, the numbers are slowly increasing, which is a fantastic sign. Whilst the IG's produced female CEOs in the UK has increased by 1 between 2012 to 2020. What are the change agents in the workplace for us as women, or people in general? How to challenge smashing stereotypes with leadership, and how can HR help with this? The impact of appropriate skills development plan coupled with a clear succession plan are critical to circumvent negative effects to the business. It's important that C-level executives embracing diversity and action change within the organizations, creating an environment where leadership amongst women is not only encouraged, but supported with a personal development plan within HR. And what's critical is provide the necessary tools to assist. This is not just about ticking the boxes, ladies. It's about giving you as women the right tools to succeed in business. The impact of gender stereotyping. I've often in my profession witnessed the impact of gender stereotypes by women's view of herself in the workplace and loss of professional self-confidence. I refer to this as a blind spot in that some males are not aware of how their personal behavior can negatively impact on those around them. The best advice I can give you is if you do find yourself in that situation, may I suggest you step the individual aside and manage it by proposing a solution going forward. Do not let it become a problem. Where an executive search firm can assist in smashing stereotypes, and this is quite critical for me personally and in my journey. As a C-level recruiter, it's essential in identifying the technical and soft skills set required and the availability of those skills to provide diversity when representing the final shortlist of candidates. These skills need to be communicated at all levels and further step taken to identify shortcomings. Together with a long-term development plan and support made available to those shortlisted candidates, including diversity, can reach the optimum match. So the soft skills so desperately required at C-level and often underestimated or in some occasions overlooked when drafting the perfect job profile, through strong communication can be made apparent, and a seasoned recruiter will identify potential candidates, highlighting alternative profiles with inclusion in alignment with the company's mapping, succession planning, and diversity policy. The placement of a successful leader is relative to the communication between a recruiter and a decision maker. I would like to end this off with the valueship of leadership in an organization, as it represents the core of the company. There are diverse styles of leadership ranging from coaching, collaborative, through to authoritarian that orchestrates a company's value system. It's important that value and integrity are part of the composition for a great conductor. To women in the business, I would like to leave you with this. Let us celebrate freedom from stereotypes, from expectations, and from sacrifice. Let's stop congratulating women for being the secret behind a successful man. Instead, let's start saluting them for being successful themselves. And with that, I'd like to thank you for your time.
That's lovely. Thank you so much, Joanne. And my takeout from what you've just shared is the importance of being brave and bold. And we often speak about little girls are never encouraged to be brave and bold like little boys are. And I think that's a wonderful standout for me. Thank you very much indeed, Joanne. Our next speaker today is Palesa Madumo. And Palesa is the CEO of Vuma Reputation Management and has media studies qualification and is a public relations and communications professional. Welcome, Palesa. I'm always intrigued about the importance of reputation management and what we ought to be mindful of when we're managing our reputations. And I'm really looking forward to hearing your topic, which is about raising awareness and influencing behaviour. Thank you for being here, Palesa.
Thank you very much, Veronica, and good afternoon to everybody who's joining us today. I am the Chief Executive Officer of Vuma Reputation Management, which is a reputation, brand and communications agency or consultancy based in Johannesburg in South Africa. And as you can hear from the name, we specialize in reputation management and positioning of different organizations, usually business to business and corporate organizations. Today, I'm not really here to talk about Vuma per se, but my title, Chief Executive Officer, is a very special one for me. Not because I'm at the top of my game, but because, or not just because I'm at the top of my game, but because I am one of 51% of women in South Africa. I'm also one of what is less than 20% of female directors in South Africa, and even less on the continent. So it's safe to say I certainly exist and really function within a male-dominated environment, from a work environment, as well as a decision-making environment. When we look at reputation management and public relations in South Africa, it's actually quite female-dominated, interestingly enough. It's a job that requires a lot of hard work, long hours, weekend work, and a lot of the people who actually position businesses in South Africa and across the globe are women. They work really hard in their homes and they work really hard at work. Growing up in my household, which consisted of mostly women, I had a mug that was one of my favorite. In my house, you could use any mug in the cupboard. And my favorite was one that was written, "The work of a woman is never done." As a teenager, I used to find it quite comical. And I used to think, oh my gosh, this is a very strange looking mug, because it was an older lady who was ironing a pile of laundry that looked like it would never get done. Little did I know that that was the reality that was about to face me as an adult, as a woman trying to navigate, having a tidy and successful home, as well as a tidy and successful office place. And I'm always amazed at how hard women work and how much women work, not just in their homes, but in society. Yet there is so much gender bias and inequality that we're faced with. On a day-to-day basis. Jill, I'm sure you'll join me in my breakaway. It sounded like you had something important to say there. But often when I think about International Women's Day, and in South Africa, we celebrate Women's Month in August, and on the 9th of August is Women's Day. I'm often, not really excited about the particular celebration, because I often find that there's a high level of window dressing that occurs. It's the time that we speak about statistics in society. We talk about how important women are. We talk about all these things that are true about society. But every year it sounds as though we're not really making enough traction, in my view. This year, the campaign theme for International Women's Day was Choose to Challenge, which for me is a very important one, because as you can probably hear, I've always been a little bit of a rebel, and I'm always wanting to challenge and to challenge the stereotypes. So my topic today is raising awareness and influencing behavior. This is very much in line with what I do on a day-to-day basis as a reputation management specialist. But the one thing that we often forget when we talk about public relations specifically is that people think of public relations as sort of this designed way of doing things that you package and you sell to people. It must look clean, it must look really decent, and it must be acceptable to those who receive it, who receive the message. But the truth about reputation management, on the other hand, is that it's about truth. It's very different to branding. And I like to use the example of a website, even when I speak to my clients. When you design a website, you look at what you want people to see. You pick your colors, you pick your beautiful pictures, you pick the copy, the music, everything you want to make people feel as though, wow, this is an amazing company, and they represent really important values and brand values, and I really want to engage with these people. Now, that is something we control from our perspective, because we can do this behind closed doors and design what we want people to think of us, what we want them to perceive us as. The truth about reputation management, on the other hand, is the real perception, how people really feel about you, how people really feel about your brand. And that's now tearing behind the layers of that website and looking at, for example, the website versus the workplace. Are the people in the workplace happy? Do they understand your values? Do they want to be part of your vision? And Joanne touched on it a little bit there in terms of talent and how, diversity is managed within the workplace. And those are the realistic things about reputation management. I think what is really important right now is exactly what the world needs, which is truth. More than anything, I think women need truth. It's time to stop talking about statistics and how women are clawing their way up the corporate ladder and ceilings and all the buzzwords that we hear every single year when we celebrate International Women's Day or when we celebrate Women's Day in South Africa. You can't talk about women without talking about the girl child. You can't talk about women without talking about the economy and women. And anybody who knows anything about South Africa and just generally the continent at the moment, and I think the globe, but most importantly, the continent, is that we have a very small growth prospect. And it's going to be that way for a while because of the coronavirus as well. So it's important that we are truthful when we address women issues, even from a branding perspective or a reputation management perspective or a hashtag perspective, because it's the only way we're actually going to make a difference. And I think it's important for us to think about the things that we, like that website, talk about every day, almost as if they are part of a normal conversation. We should hire more women. There should be more women on boards. There should be more women doing this or that or leading that and that team without thinking about the type of action that is required for that to happen. Now, there's a combination, which is why it's important for me not to sit here and talk about how you can do the branding side of this job, but really how you can do the truth side of this job and how you can delve into what is really behind a hashtag and why you should join Black Twitter, for example, when they are addressing a really important social issue, and how you can make a difference by joining certain movements and by positioning certain movements and certain topics and challenging the environment that you find yourself in. In fact, in the last few years, I've realized in South Africa, which actually has a very little internet connection compared to the rest of the world, being on Twitter and being on platforms where hashtags have driven specific and strong messages have actually affected the way government presents its plans every year. And more I'm finding that when our president stands up and gives the State of the Nation, for example, at the beginning of the year, he will quote a tweet or he will quote something that somebody online said about women and about how government should be focusing on women issues. Of course, the action is really what's needed, and that's what I'm looking forward to discussing in my breakaway this afternoon. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Palesa. What came to mind for me was about the importance of personal brand and being true to what we stand for. And that's what our reputation management would be about. Lovely nuggets there. Thank you very much indeed, Palesa. So we move on to Cheryl Buss, who's the CEO at Absa Bank International. Cheryl leads the bank's international operations, enabling globally scalable business that drives connectivity with corporates and institutional clients through an independent international presence. Welcome, Cheryl, and lovely to have you here. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Veronica, and good. Well, it's just good morning for us in the UK and good afternoon to everyone else. So, as I've just said, I'm based in London. I'm South African, having moved to London just over a year ago. just in January a year ago to set up the operations, or to continue with the operations in the UK, and to set up the operations that we've been doing in the US. So I think for those of you in South Africa, across Africa, would know ABSA well, and I was very honored to take up this role and be appointed in this role and move to London to, as you say, Veronica, help steer the international presence of the bank. But really that presence, everything is about Africa. And so a lot of work that we do, all the work that we do is centered around Africa. And a lot of the work that we do is centered around Africans across Africa, the communities in which people operate and in which we operate. And key and pertinent to that is women. And so, Palesa referred to the girl child. So we try and do a lot of work as well in trying to help women in the economic environment. And so being a female myself and having, been in the environment and been in the banking environment for over 20 years, it really, it's very special to be on this discussion point today. And I think, when I was reflecting around, senior women in senior leadership, what does that mean? And I think, for me, narrowing it down personally and just saying, women in the workplace, actually, because I think it's kind of irrelevant around where you are in the workplace. I think we all in the workplace, and we all should show up. And on reflection, we had a bit of a discussion point in ABSA last year around the discussion around being deeply rooted. And what does deeply rooted mean? And for me, my takeaway around deeply rooted is resilience to show up as a woman, the resilience that women show up with every day. And for me, how I move on from that is to say, to be deeply rooted and to have resilience that women show up means that you need to be rooted in who you are as a woman. And that means you need to have the belief, and you need to show up as a woman and be proud. And I think Joanne was saying that in terms of saying who and how we show up, and Palesa as well, in terms of saying how we show up with our personal brand. I don't think that you can ever show up with your personal brand unless you believe in who you are as a woman. I think what we're faced with thereafter is the challenge in just that, because I think that as women, we get pulled apart in many instances because we're expected to show up as a woman. Well, what is that? Is that as a woman in our careers? Is that as a wife or partner? Is that as a mother? Is that as a daughter? Who am I showing up? And so there's so many different mirrors that you have to put on every day. And so if you're not deeply rooted as a woman to say, first and foremost, I'm a woman, I think that then the others get a little bit murky. And so for me, that's something quite important. I think one of the things that we struggle with is how society expects women to show up and what is expected. And the commentary, I've so many times been faced with the comments of, oh, wow, that's quite a senior job. Now, I would never walk into a meeting a client where that would be said of a man. And so the expectation is, that maybe we shouldn't be in these particular roles, or other comments around, who's looking after your children, or should you not be at home with your children? And I think so that's where society diverges, and that's where women struggle to know exactly where to fit. I think when you're more junior, so what I found through the women that I've mentored over the years is that the juniors, or when you're starting out in your career, it's a little bit easier because your expectations are less. So you're selfish, you can do what you want to do. But as soon as you start to blossom as a woman, so the difficulties start to come into play, because perhaps you have a partner or a husband, perhaps you are becoming a mother, perhaps your parents need you a little bit more. And so you get torn apart. And so the women that I've mentored have always said, how do you do it? And for me, it's not about finding balance, because more and more I think balance is a bit of a misnomer, but it's rather creating that belief, and that belief hopefully brings around balance. And when you look across at that belief, it's around believing in yourself such that you can influence those around you. So I think that a lot of women get stuck with the fact of, there's expectations for me to stay at home. My husband expects me to do X and Y, and how do I shift that? And I think that is something that we need to grapple with. It's that society expectation. And building on from society expectation, therefore, it's what women bring on themselves by having that lack of belief. And so I think those two go hand in hand: belief in yourself and trying via all the influences to shift society. I remember once I traveled, as you may know, ABSA was part of the Barclays Group, and I traveled to Barclays, Zimbabwe, and I wanted to meet with a group of women, and a load of women unexpectedly arrived, and they were younger and older and across all spectrums of society. And a couple of things struck me. Firstly, I was taken aback because I thought there'd be 5 girls sitting around, having some tea and coffee, but actually there was a couple of buses of women that arrived. And so for me, it was quite heartfelt, because it just showed the extent of really what's out there. And everyone came into this boardroom that was a huge boardroom with a gorgeous boardroom table, and not one woman, and it was a room full of women, not one woman sat at the table. Now, to quote Sheryl Sandberg, where she says, "Lean in, take your seat at the table," here was a very live example of women that didn't believe, even in a women's forum, that they could actually take a place at the table. And we unpacked that, and they said, a large part of that is around societal expectations. And so again, come back to the belief in yourself. I'm here, take a seat at the table. Another lens that I'd like to offer is that lens is, as we're showing up as women and as we're trying to assert ourselves in the right way, and as Joanne said, use the fact that we're a woman to actually use it positively, because women do bring other things to the table, and it brings diversity. But I think another lens that I'd like to apply is the lens that maybe a man would apply, and how maybe on two sides, does a man, when he's in an environment, think about the reaction of something that is said and how that may actually impact a woman. And so I'm asking the men that are on this call to think about the words that you use and how that may have an impact that you won't even think of. By the same token, I'd also like women to think about the impact that they have on men. So I have, I'm fortunate enough to be in a fantastic position. My husband, we chose to move to the UK, and my husband moved with. He gave up his career. And so for a man and a husband, how do you think that makes him feel? And so there's no answers here. I think there's just realizations of what actually exists. And there's the barriers that exist, being women not having enough belief in themselves, the guilt and the lack of know-how into how you're meant to show up in society, be it a mother, a partner, a wife, a daughter, etc., a career woman, and how all of that is balanced to be acceptable. So that's the barriers. The second is the sacrifices. We all make sacrifices. I think my husband's made sacrifices for me, and one could argue perhaps my children have made sacrifices because their mother's not always around and is working. But by the same token, to every con, there's a positive. I'm also teaching them resilience. I'm also teaching them belief, to believe in themselves as women and how they can achieve, maybe using me just but as a little bit of an example, and hopefully the good stuff, not the bad stuff. And then lastly, it's around the stigmas. So how do we break those stigmas? And both our speakers have alluded to that before. How do you get heard? How do you break your stigmas that it's okay to be out? That the stigmas around, oh, well, what kind of a woman she must be if she's so senior. No, we have to work harder to make our voices heard. And sometimes our voices aren't heard in quite the same tone as a man's voice may be heard, but sometimes perhaps that tone can be used to advantage. And so we only have to look at this pandemic as good evidence of what women in leadership have brought to the positive through the pandemic. Women can be empathetic. Yes, we can be overpassionate, and yes, we can sometimes lose it sometimes, but maybe that's a positive. And in a world that so desperately needs empathy and caring and a different lens in leadership, I think that women are truly strongly placed to stand up and really to take their place and to have a good balance. That diversity is so important, such that we can be heard. So I think Joanne said that women should stand up and be brave and be bold. So I would like to, in closing, say women need to be brave, we need to be bold, and we need to have belief. Thank you.
Lovely. Thank you so much, Cheryl. Women in senior leadership, you really encapsulated the different roles that we play: mother, sister, daughter, aunt, and still we need to be deep-rooted as a woman in order to show up at the table, with decision-making tables in leadership. Thank you very much. Really inspiring. Thank you. So we're on to our fourth speaker, who is Ramadiche Lucy Mashego, and her topic is going to be about work-life balance. Ramadiche is the trustee of the South African Diaspora Ubunye Trust, helping communities in South Africa and in the UK, and that's regardless of political, religious, ethnic affiliation. Through her work, she has brought about community cohesion and integration through various South African events. I really look forward to hearing from you. I've kind of lost her on my screen. Ramadiche, over to you. We look forward to hearing from you. Work-life balance.
Lucy?
Ramadiche? Might be the Wi-Fi problem.
I think so. I think at this point, perhaps we should go into our breakout rooms, and if we manage to get Lucy back, then we can hopefully get her to have her little say at the end. But it's been such a pleasure to do this, and Palesa's had to go, but she said that we should do this more often. So if it is something that we do actually have regular networking events, the various chapters host them on a monthly basis, and we would welcome you to join. If you would like to subscribe to the Chamber newsletter, that will keep you informed as to when and how to join and what is happening. And we have a lot of events. We're going to do a virtual gala dinner for the first time. That's on the 23rd of March. So please visit the website to see how that's going to work. Sharon's put a huge amount of effort into organizing food deliveries and wine pairings, wine tastings. So do have a look. It's the opportunity to get together virtually in your finery and enjoy some good food and South African wine, and just to network with each other. So I would say if there is nothing more to add, then let's say goodbye, and please let's keep in touch, and let's do this again soon. So thank you very much, everybody.